Welcome to Screens of the Stone Age, the podcast where scientists review movies about prehistoric people. My name is Josh Lindell. I'm a grad student studying Neanderthal teeth, and I'm here with...
I'm Dr. Ross Barnett, a paleogeneticist interested in ancient DNA and phylogenetics.
I'm Rachel McMullan. I am an archaeologist, and I run the Inside Archaeology YouTube channel.
And thanks for joining us, Rachel. I think you got to be like one of the OG archaeology YouTubers, because I think you're the first archaeology channel I ever subscribed to on YouTube.
Oh, thank you. I think I am. I've been doing it. I think I got a notification the other day on my channel that it was like, I think it's 9 years old now. So that's kind of crazy to think. It's like me, Archeo Soup, and Dig It with Raven and I started right around the same time as well. So yeah, it's been a long haul, that's for sure.
Well, thanks for being here with us. So you suggested the movie Uncharted from 2022, based on a video game. Now, I hadn't seen this movie before watching it for this podcast. I didn't realize that so much of it took place in the Philippines. Our regular listeners will know that Kim, who is based in the Philippines, is missing today. And as it turns out, she was having trouble accessing this movie because it's banned in the Philippines. And so I was spending a lot of time trying to find some way for her to watch this movie. And then at the last minute, she sent us a frantic email having to cancel, and I haven't heard from her since. So hopefully Kim is okay and that she hasn't been kidnapped by the Philippine government. We'll find out on the next episode, I guess. But Rachel, can you summarize this movie for our listeners who may not have seen it yet?
Yeah, spoiler alert, I guess, because I'll go through the whole plot.
We will spoil the whole movie. We always forget to say spoiler alert, but we go through the whole plot, so don't worry about spoiling it.
Yeah, so it starts off with Nathan Drake, played by Tom Holland, who has a kind of an origin scene in the beginning where him and his brother are looking at a map of Magellan's expedition, and his brother's telling him all about it, and then they get caught trying to steal it, and his brother gets kicked out of the orphanage, I think, that they're in, and disappears, but sends him these postcards throughout the rest of his life. And then you fast forward and he's grown up, he's working in a bar as a pickpocket and bartender, and he gets recruited by Scully. That's the correct name, right? Yeah.
Sully?
Yeah.
Sully, not Scully. Yeah. Sully. He gets recruited by Sully, who's Mark Wahlberg's character, which, interestingly, when I looked at the video, when this was first picked up, it was supposed to be Mark Wahlberg playing Nathan Drake. But by the time it actually got around to production, he was a bit too old for the character, and they decided they wanted an origin story. But he obviously still wanted to be in it. So then they repurposed the Sully role for him, which I thought was quite interesting. And so he comes to Nathan Drake and I guess has clocked that he's a decent thief and wants him to help him steal a cross artifact from an auction that is being bid on by Antonio Banderas, who is from a Spanish banking family that allegedly funded Magellan's expedition. That didn't happen in real life. And it's connected to it in some way. And there's this whole thing that goes on about how Magellan gets the credit for the circumnavigation and his whole expedition, but he died in the Philippines, and the expedition was actually finished by his crew, and which is one of the few actually historically accurate parts of the movie. Is that they give proper credit to the people who finished the journey. But then very vaguely, they talk about a treasure that was hidden. And that's what they're trying to find. This cross that they're after is like the key to help them find this treasure. So they successfully steal it. And then, hijinks ensue. They end up in Barcelona, where they meet up with a second character who has a second cross. And together, they're going to unlock the key to the map to the place that they're going. So they do this in a church in Barcelona, and then they think they find the treasure. It's buried in some underground cavern. Turns out they find a bunch of jars filled with sand, and then they're being pursued by this Spanish banking guy and an old affiliate of Sully's who's hair throughout the whole movie. I was just like, oh my God. It looked like a helmet. There was a lot of gel involved. And I never really kind of understood her involvement in it anyway, but she's this kind of like ruthless mercenary that's been hired by the Moncadas, Antonio Banderas' banking family, to recover this treasure because they think it's their due because they didn't get the money back from their expedition. So they've been holding on to this debt for a few hundred years in an attempt to recoup some of their money. And then through various hijinks, they end up in the Philippines and they figure out that the crosses, Tom Holland's character figures out that the crosses have some coordinates that lead him to a cave. And in this cave, he finds two abandoned boats that are filled with treasure and very well preserved in this kind of like sinkhole cave. And then in like the craziest action sequence that makes every archaeologist like grimace, the mercenary shows up with her crew to steal the treasure from him and Sully and airlifts it with some helicopters. And then there's like this crazy fight scene on like two like ancient boats being suspended in midair by like helicopters, which was just like, oh. And then at the end, the boats end up back in the sea, irrevocably destroyed, but the treasure's still there, and they all just walk away. I don't know. I didn't get that bit. I was like, underwater archaeology exists, guys. Like, why are you not going after it? Is that a detailed enough summary for you guys?
That's a very good summary. Thank you.
Yeah.
I picked the film partially because I've seen all the Indiana Jones and all the Tomb Raider films that were on the list. So I wanted to pick something that was fresh. And one of the things I like to do on my YouTube channel is I live stream video games because that's kind of a secondary hobby of mine. I'm currently working through Tomb Raider, but I tried Uncharted back during the pandemic when Naughty Dog made the first 3 like free on PlayStation, but I never actually made it through the third game. So it kind of rang a bell for me, which is why I picked it.
Well, that was going to be my first question, if any of us have actually played any of the Uncharted games, because this movie is based on a video game series. Ross is shaking his head. Ross hasn't played any of the Uncharted games.
I haven't played anything since Tetris.
I never really played Uncharted. I watch a friend play some of the first one, but I haven't played any Uncharted since then. But I understand that this movie is loosely inspired by the fourth game, and it has some elements from the third and a few Easter eggs from some of the other games, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so in particular, the finding these pirate ships in a cave, I think, is a major plot point from the fourth Uncharted game. And I watched a bit of a playthrough last night as I was researching this, so I could see the similarities. You were talking about this helicopter pirate ship chase scene at the end of the movie, and my feeling with this movie was like, if I was playing this as a video game, I would feel like it's too over the top.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. Did anybody else clock the cameo by the voice actor for Nathan Drake from the games in the film?
Only because it was so kind of out of place. He's the guy sitting on the sun lounger when they get in from floating in the box. And what does he say? He says, "Oh yeah." He asks what happened to them, and they say, "We fell out of a car falling out of a plane." And he says something like, "Oh, something similar happened to me." It's like, okay.
Yeah. It just leaves it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have been confused about that if I hadn't read elsewhere that there was a cameo. I was watching with Aurora, and she was knitting and paying half attention beside me, and she looked up at that, and she was like, "Who's that guy? Is he in the movie?" So it was pretty out of place.
It was very obvious cameo, I thought.
So normally we start off nitpicking inaccuracies, historical or archaeological. We could probably find quite a few in this. Do we have anything to start with?
Well, I'll say that it's not historical because that kind of era, the pirate age of history is not my area of expertise. And I actually didn't really know a lot about Magellan before I watched the movie. So I went away and did some research. But yeah, as I kind of alluded to at the beginning, there's really not any archaeology in this movie. And it is very loosely based on a very small bit of history. There was, like whoever did the consulting on this must have had a bit of a headache. Because they didn't take any, they used a very loose brush when they were painting history with it.
Yeah, I also don't know anything about Magellan or Francis Drake, who the main character is supposed to be descended from. Ross, do you know much about that?
No, not really. But just that like the sort of 15th, 16th century, definitely was a lot of maritime trade that was just kind of plundering whichever civilization they came across, taking all their gold and moving it back to the old world. So that kind of rang true.
I saw some really like interesting comments when I was researching about the film about how, it's kind of it's an incredibly generic action film because it tries to be Indiana Jones, Tomb Raider, and like Pirates of the Caribbean all in one, which are all like independently, I mean, Tomb Raider's arguable, but they're all quite good, like, and well-known franchises as films. And it really, like, it didn't have very unique elements to it. To me, it felt very like pieced together. I did look into the things that it was based on. So like the Magellan part, as I said, is the one thing that they get right is the fact that, he's credited with this circumnavigation expedition, but actually he died in the Philippines and because he was trying to convert them to Christianity and they didn't like that. So they killed him in a battle. And then his crew, finished the journey. It was actually financed by the King of Spain, but he was Portuguese, so there apparently was a bit of drama around that. But I was reading about, I was actually looking into the actual kind of thing that is based on. I think that's more in the games rather than in the film, which is these two pirate ships that are hidden pirate treasure. So apparently it's based on the treasure of Henry Avery, which is one of the very few pirate captains in history who ever managed to get away with his treasure and avoid like being imprisoned or hanged or executed. But interestingly, he was only a pirate captain for 2 years. It was a very short amount of time. And basically the reason he had all this treasure is because he was part of this famous pirate raid that happened in 1695. Where there was a couple different crews that all joined together and they raided a 25-ship convoy that was traveling from the Grand Mughal Empire in India to go on the pilgrimage, the like Islamic pilgrimage, the Hajj to Mecca. And they were like, it was laden with treasure and gold and jewels and all these things. And the pirates successfully managed to board the ships at the what's it called? The Bab el Mandeb, the Gate of Grief, which is the narrowing of land between Yemen on the Arabian Peninsula and Djibouti and Eritrea on the Horn of Africa, which is currently a point of contention at the moment because of certain political things happening in that area as well. And so they cornered the convoy.
There's still pirates there.
Oh yeah, exactly. There's still pirates there. And I have a connection to that as well, sort of, that I'll talk about after. But when they raided the ship, they made off with about, I think it's $127 million in modern day equivalent of treasure, which is nowhere near the amount that's apparently in the film. They say it's worth like $5 billion, which is kind of a bit of an extortionate number that I think like they just like plucked out of thin air. But yeah, then after that, they disappear and they don't know what happened to him. Some of his, I think 5 of his crew were eventually rescued. Sorry, not rescued, arrested. But he just like disappeared in the record. So there's various people who think he either like died in poverty, or there's some people that think he just like retired to an island and lived anonymously with his gold, etc. But
like a 17th century DB Cooper.
Yeah. Yeah. I also read that, what was it? The raid itself, because the pirates of that time were all actually, operating under license, like as privateers, as far as I'm aware. The raid caused a lot of damage to England's relationship with the Mughal Empire. And they like the bounty for their capture was like £1,000, which was at the time the highest ever in history, and it launched the world's first ever like global manhunt for someone.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's actually really fascinating. The real story that it's based off of that probably would have been a lot easier to shoehorn in than Magellan. Like, why? I don't know why. It's kind of a bit weird why they had Magellan as this kind of plot device instead of, they very could have easily just made it the pirates. I don't really know why they did that.
And the main character is supposed to be descended from Francis Drake, who is also an English privateer who circumnavigated the second team to circumnavigate the Earth. And so, like, for a first movie, if you're sort of condensing the games, you could have used that story, because they make up the story about how the real goal of Magellan wasn't to travel around the Earth. It was to plunder and steal a bunch of gold. But that was the real story behind the Francis Drake expedition, who was supposed to circumnavigate the Earth, but it was really about English raiding a bunch of things and getting a bunch of treasure. So it seems like even to use Francis Drake instead of Magellan would have made more sense to me.
Yeah. And given him a bit more of a connection to the story.
Yeah.
I'm very glad you guys are making the distinction that Drake is an English privateer and not calling him British, because as a Scotsman, that makes me happy, because this is before the Act of Union, when we were kind of forcibly joined to England. So yeah, it's nothing to do with me. All the English, just boo them.
I live in Edinburgh in Scotland, and I'm married to a Scot, so I'm very aware of the distinction.
Excellent. We're on the same team. That's good. But I think what Rachel was saying about it feels like they've taken Indiana Jones, the Goonies, Pirates of the Caribbean, and just stuck it in a blender and sort of strained it out. All the interesting bits of those other franchises have been kind of left behind, and they're left with this really kind of thin soup of just, here's the MacGuffin. Let's take the scene from the Last Crusade, where they've got to find the secret passages in the church. Let's take the kind of bits from the Goonies, where they find the pirate ship, and it's really not. It's just so generic. It's quite bland, and I feel like the actors are good. Like Tom Holland's good. Mark Wahlberg's good at his thing. I feel sorry that Tom Holland just never gets to use his normal accent. So he has to put on his American Spider-Man accent for this one, and nobody's particularly likable. So we're supposed to like him because he's grown up in an orphanage and his big brother's kind of buggered off, but he is a con man and a thief with very little kind of moral compass. Wahlberg's even worse. He talks about how he kind of looted museums in Baghdad as a kind of throwaway line. Okay, that's great. And even at the end, like you were saying, they have this really bizarre physics-defying boats in the sky fight with broadsides and kind of boarding actions, and they sink, but their masts are still above the surface. You could literally kind of swim down and pick up any treasure you wanted. Although, as they say at the end, it belongs to the Philippines, apart from the stuff that he stuffed into his pockets and is now about to steal. And that's supposed to be a win, that he's kind of plundered not just the Philippines archaeology, but kind of our understanding of the history of that time period in their world. Yeah, they're all just terrible people.
Yeah, they weren't very likable. And I think, what was it? Tom Holland, I think part of the, correct me if I'm wrong, I think like Nathan Drake in Uncharted is supposed to be this, charming roguish character that kind of like gets away with stuff and everything. And Tom Holland just fell so flat for me. I felt like he was trying so hard to have an American accent and be like this serious haunted guy who just wants to find his brother, that he just spent the whole series being like, ugh. Like I just there wasn't any no charm came through for it for me. And
No.
ironically, as much as I haven't played the Uncharted games, I distinctly remember, I think it was probably like 10 years ago, I'd have to look it up, but a while back, do you guys know who Nathan Fillion is?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Nathan Fillion did like I guess it was a bunch of fans of Uncharted put together a short film, like a 10-minute like treatment or something like that, where they got him to star in it as Nathan Drake. They did like an Uncharted kind of not pilot, but like thing. And I remember I watched that. I didn't know anything about Uncharted. And I was like, wow, he's so good in that role. Again, now he's a little bit probably too old for the role if he were to do it now, but like, what a missed chance. He would have been so good, I think, if they'd had him as Nathan Drake, because he has that kind of, he's got the action bit, but he's also kind of just got that like roguish charm that I think people expect from the character.
Yeah, he's got charm like just oozing out of his pores, Nathan Fillion. He just seems like such a kind of chill, cool guy. Yeah, he would have
Yeah.
been good.
And like I think he's just got that talent, that like thing for like a quick comment that's funny that you kind of like just that he's got the comedic timing and he's got the action chops to be able. I think he would have been able. It's just a missed opportunity. I think it's nothing against Tom Holland, but because I think I've only seen one of the Spider-Man movies. I've not seen really anything that he's been in. But yeah, I don't know. That every time I just kind of saw him, I was just kind of like parkour. I felt like that was what he really brought to the role, and he just spent the whole time in the film just being like parkour and just like going around and doing stuff.
Well, that is one of the things that I think this makes this movie unique, because like it's just a bland mix of all these other sort of archaeology adventure movies. Except that the Uncharted games are really about a lot of climbing and jumping and sort of navigating these physical puzzles. And so we open the movie with a flash forward where he's falling through the air, dangling behind a cargo plane, jumping on these like cargo crates. And I'm like, okay, this feels like a video game, right? Jumping. And that, I believe that scene is based on a part from the third game. And then they one up the Goonies. They're not just on pirate ships in a cave, but then they're flying pirate ships with a helicopter. And this feels like a video game, right? And so I think that's all it has going for it. It's a really bland, Tomb Raider and the Goonies and Indiana Jones in a blender, like you said. But then like amping it up to a video game level, which is, again, the only real thing that makes it unique. But it doesn't really make the movie great because it's not a game. If it was a game, that would be really fun to play, right?
Yeah.
But if you're just watching it, it's like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's just kind of fan service to the people who've played the games in a way. But as I think I watched it with my husband and he was just kind of like, oh man, green screen is just getting too overused. Because I mean, maybe if Tom Cruise was in the part, they would have tried to do it in real time, but that was very obviously green screen.
Having kind of, we've all sort of trashed it a bit as being fairly bland, which it definitely is. But I didn't feel myself sort of switching off. Like quite often with the films that we review, especially the ones that Josh chooses, we'll find ourselves kind of putting onto 1.5 times speed or something like that, just because you find yourself falling asleep. But because this is so video game-like, everything's happening like just bang, bang, bang. So there's not a chance to get bored, even if it is kind of generic and not very inspired. You don't get a chance to, feel like it's dragging. It just kind of sweeps through very, very efficiently right to the end, which I guess is a plus point. It doesn't bore you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is a blockbuster movie, which is unusual for us. We are usually doing some more obscure things.
I did see, what was it? I saw a really good thing on Reddit that said, my favorite part of the Uncharted movie is how they never go anywhere uncharted, because the ancient secret is in a Papa John. The other ancient secret is behind the bar of a nightclub. And the hidden pirate ship is in a cove near a resort. Like,
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good comment on it because I was like, oh yeah, I did think the part where it was underneath a Papa John's was quite funny.
Well, like I said at the beginning here, Kim was having trouble finding this movie because it is banned in the Philippines. A lot of it takes place in the Philippines. I don't think I went into enough detail at the beginning, but it's not banned for any real content reason. What it's banned for in the Philippines is that I don't even know exactly what scene it is, but there's a scene where they're looking at a map, and that map shows something that's called the 9-dash line, which is a political designation, which is a border around the South China Sea, which is basically indicating that China owns the South China Sea and several islands inside of it, which are contested. And so Vietnam and the Philippines have banned this movie for that reason. And there was apparently some controversy because the studio could make decisions about that. And I guess whenever you're making a big Hollywood movie, you make a lot of concessions to China because China's a really big market. And so they've included this map that shows the borders that China likes and not the borders that other countries like, so that they can have it not banned in China and ban it in Vietnam and the Philippines, which are smaller countries where there's much less of a market. So if anybody is working for an archaeology department anywhere else on Earth and wants to offer Kim a job so that we can make it easier for her to watch all the movies that we watch. She has a lot of trouble finding movies in the Philippines. Have you noticed that, Ross? There's a lot of movies we've watched that are banned for her.
I didn't realize that they were so censored, like in the Philippines. The only time I've ever come across that really is when I was in Egypt many, many, many years ago. My friend and I were wasting time in a hotel room in an evening, and I think Pearl Harbor was on, and they censored the movie in that they took out, like, I think a pretty important scene for the plot where there's two characters, I think, having intimate time on screen. And I just remember it just like suddenly switched, like I had never seen the movie before. And then I was just like, this doesn't really make sense. When did they get together? And then I only found out later. I was like, oh, it's interesting that they banned it because of not because of the map, but like you'd think that the filmmakers would just include a map without the boundaries.
Or make
like you can't Photoshop that out.
Yeah.
It's also, I mean, it feels kind of quite craven. It shows that their kind of overriding concern is just how much money this can make for them.
Yeah.
There's no kind of integrity of, well, we can't give in to China because this is contested. We have to show the reality. Nope. China's our biggest market. We'll do what they like so that it can sell there, and screw the Philippines and Vietnam. They're not big enough for us to be worried about.
I was just looking actually because I remember it because it came out it was initially supposed to come out during COVID. But it was apparently a commercial success because it made 400 million worldwide against 120 million budget, making it the fourth highest grossing video game at the time of release. And they're developing a sequel.
Oh, wow.
I don't know why, and I hope they get better writers.
And maybe a few archaeologists.
Well, I can see, I actually know an archaeologist who works on scripts in the world and film. And I've read a few articles about people who do it as well. And I think it just becomes one of those things when you're a consultant where you can give the people as many notes on how accurate this is or isn't. But at the end of the day, it's, they're making art, right? So they can choose what they want to regard and disregard, and you don't really have any control.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate. Is cheaper? Yeah. Or which option do we think is more exciting? And I don't know about you guys, but in many of the franchises that I follow or whatever, like I see a lot of things about executives who aren't actually the creatives either, having a lot of control over what happens in a film nowadays. And I don't know. I think a lot of films that I watched recently suffer from executive-itis, where they're trying to make it appeal to too many people that it just ends up being incredibly generic.
I think that's sort of something we've talked about before. I think that the idea that having any kind of knowledge in a specialized field does tend to ruin the idea of entertainment from that field. So like
Mhm.
archaeology, like pretty much all archaeology films, if we were to watch them, be like, oh my God, that's ridiculous. That didn't happen. And that kind of takes you out of it. And same like for me, it's with kind of biogeography. That's a real one for me. And it happened just this week. I was watching a sitcom called Plebs, which may be one um, for the podcast, which is a comedy set in ancient Rome. And they have all these kind of market scenes, and I'm pretty sure it's got to be deliberate because it was annoying me so much that all of the produce in the Roman market was New World. So they had pumpkins, they had, they had tomatoes, they had corn. I was just getting angrier and angrier, and I wasn't able to enjoy it because it's like they're just trying to wind me up now.
I'm sure I'll bet you money that that's just like them just not caring. Just being like, yeah,
Yeah.
the amount of people that'll notice this is so small that and we don't have the budget to only make sure that we have to, historically appropriate produce.
Yeah.
We do have a little bit of real archaeology in this movie at the what was Antonio Banderas' name? Mankato?
Oh yeah. Moncada.
Moncada? At his family's secret headquarters, they are in a building that has sort of like a museum. It's like a museum built over an archaeological excavation, and they really gloss over this. It's like the Mankato headquarters has an active archaeological excavation inside the building, and he's like, this is when his hired henchman with the crazy hair. I think it's when he's meeting her for the first time in the movie, and he's like, "Here's Barcelona as my ancestors knew it," or something like that. But it's really unclear why this rich banking family has an archaeological excavation inside their headquarters. But does anybody know what that actual site is? Because that's a real archaeological site.
No, I don't. I'm actually trying to look it up right now because when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's really cool. It really reminds me of, have you guys been to Bethlehem in Israel? I was there
No.
about a decade ago, and in at the like the Church of the Nativity in um Bethlehem is very, very similar, where they have like a big kind of plaza, but then underneath it, they've preserved where they've like excavated the old town of Bethlehem. And then inside the actual Church of the Nativity is still like partially, they've like built it around an excavation and a place that allegedly had I think it has like a doorway that's like, it's like neighbor to Mary or something like that. So it's like a house that they think might have belonged to Jesus and Mary and Joseph. Um, I don't know how valid that is, but yes, I'm going to look up where that thing was because I did think that was really cool, and I completely forgot about it until you mentioned it. I did watch the film a few weeks ago, so
There definitely is a trend for kind of modern buildings where they find kind of archaeology in their foundations to, and I think it's a good thing to just basically kind of glass house it and keep it so that it can be used. There's a McDonald's, I think, in Rome that has that as well. You know, not a Papa John's, but a McDonald's that has like a hypercost in its basement that you can go and visit.
Mhm.
And yeah, you point out we have a similar thing in the movie with the Papa John's that has some sort of, looks like maybe like a Roman fresco or something behind glass in the Papa John's. So it seems like it's suggesting the same thing. That Papa John's was not real. It's a set that they filmed in Berlin. But this big excavation is real. It is the El Born Culture and Memory Center in Barcelona. And it is I was reading about this on Wikipedia. So it was, the building itself is the Mercat del Born. It's a public market that was built in the late 1800s. And it was operating for almost 100 years as a market, and then it sort of fell into a bit of disrepair, and then they were going to revitalize it in like the 80s or 90s. And I believe they were going to put a library in it or something, but during the renovations, they discovered the archaeological site under the floor from like 1700s Barcelona. And so they shifted gears and they're like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to open up this archaeological excavation and turn this 1800s building into a museum to showcase this 1700s archaeological site. And it is apparently free to access. It's still sort of a public market that has this archaeological site sort of as the centerpiece. And you can visit it for free, or you can pay like $5 for a guided tour.
That's really
if
cool.
If anybody is going to Barcelona.
I've been to Barcelona once, and I'm now like, oh, I wish I'd gone to go see that.
Another thing that features sort of prominently in this movie is this historical map. They call it the first complete map of the world. Did anybody look into that in any detail?
No.
It's a map that shows Magellan's route around the world. And as far as I can tell, it's totally fake because Wikipedia has a page of just early world maps. And there's no map that, like, I think it's implied that Magellan or his crew drew this map, but it's impossible for them to have done that because a lot of the coast of South America, all the way up to like the Baja Peninsula in California, is mapped out, but Magellan didn't map the western coast of the Americas. So the early maps from shortly after Magellan's time that include like knowledge that came from Magellan don't have like the entire western coast of the Americas isn't mapped out. So as far as I can tell, this map is just a complete fabrication, you know, sort of inspired by early 1500s maps, but not actually based on any particular real artifact that I can tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting to like think about the history of map making and how like the maps of the world have like come to be and how they've changed so much over history. But yeah, I didn't really, and the thing is as well as it would have had to been made by his crew with a lot more knowledge of the world than they actually had, and the ability to also just like, did they were map makers on every single ship? I would have thought that being a cartographer of that level wasn't someone that they sent out on every expedition. I don't know. It would be interesting to know if he had cartographers on the expedition as well, because when I was reading about his journey, because here it's, you know, trade, allegedly the reason, well, I say allegedly, the reason that he got sent on it is because at that time, Portugal controlled the trade routes to Asia through like the Horn of Africa. And so he was sent overseas to try and find a route around the Americas by the government of Spain to try and bypass the Portuguese monopoly on the trade routes. So yeah, like and then he was going to basically the Philippines. They call it the Spice Islands when I read about it, to try and find cloves, and I can't remember what the other two spices were. But after he died, the ships, there was 5 ships initially in the expedition. After he died, there was only 2 that made it back to was it 2 that actually made it back, or 1? But there was 2 in the Spice Islands after he died, and they loaded themselves up with spices and went back to England. And out of the 270 men that he took on the expedition, only like 18 or 19 of them came back, which is actually crazy if you think about it.
Yeah, that's nuts. One of the things that I did think was quite interesting in the film, and it almost kind of took me by surprise, because it seemed like it seemed like it was going to go in a quite interesting direction, was when they first find the ships in the cave in the Philippines, and they open up the barrels and they're full of spices. I was thinking, okay, that's interesting. The treasure that they were bringing back was spice. I mean, and that would totally make sense for that time period, because the spices would have been, you know, more expensive and more tradable than gold and jewelry. But no, they didn't go in that direction. They had the treasure just being underneath the spices.
Yeah, I wonder if
which
that
was a bit sad.
I wonder if that was an Easter egg then, that the consultant for the film managed to be like, let's just slip this in there.
Yeah, as I was watching this movie, I was wondering by the time we got to the end, are we going to have some sort of message about archaeological ethics. And I mean, we've drawn comparisons, not like a direct message, but like something, some consideration. We've drawn comparisons to other movies, like the big blockbuster ones like Indiana Jones and Tomb Raider. There's like a whole style of movie that this follows where it's like a treasure hunt where you're following clues, which is not a thing that ever happens in real life, and not particularly not in archaeology, but like As Above, So Below, or
National
the Da
Treasure.
Vinci Code. And yeah, National Treasure is the one that I was thinking the most about, which I've never really seen any direct comparisons between this movie and National Treasure. But we have a main character who's supposed to be descended from a historical figure, Nathan Drake from Francis Drake in this case, Benjamin Franklin Gates from Benjamin Franklin in National Treasure. We also have invisible ink playing a huge role in both of these treasure hunts, right?
Yeah.
But in National Treasure, we have like, that movie was much better than I was expecting. Still not my style of movie, but like we have a little bit of a good ethical message where he's searching for a treasure and he's breaking all these laws, but he's actually breaking all the laws to protect the treasure. And in the end, he doesn't take a big like monetary prize, although he does take a pretty big one, but he very nobly returns the treasure to the United States government, even though it's clear that that treasure is looted from all over the world and should be repatriated to all over the world. But at the end of the movie, the message is it's not about the treasure. The treasure belongs to everybody, so he returns it to the government. And in this movie, we start off with Tom Holland being critical of Mark Wahlberg for having looted archaeological artifacts in Iraq. Mark Wahlberg says something like, we liberated these artifacts during the war or something, and he's like, you mean you looted them? And I'm like, oh great, so we've got some acknowledgement that this is looting and not archaeology. But throughout the movie, that's gone, right? They're just in a fight to steal this treasure, and then at the end they lose it, and they're like, now it belongs to the Philippine government. Like, well, it always belonged to the Philippine government. You were just literally trying to steal treasures from the Philippine government. And this is another big problem with the movie for me, because we have good guys who are trying to steal the treasure and bad guys who are trying to steal the treasure, but there's no difference between them at all, right? The bad guy belongs to, so the Antonio Banderas belongs to the family that allegedly financed this trip. And because the treasures didn't make it back, he's like, we got robbed. These are our treasures. They belong to our family. And
plus
Tom
interest.
Holland plus interest. And Tom Holland wants the treasure because
his brother was looking for it, and
his
he's
brother
doing
was
it
looking
to
for
like,
it.
yeah.
And so why is he the good guy and Antonio Banderas is the bad guy? They're just both people who want to steal a treasure that doesn't actually belong to them, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
I can answer this one. So
because one's English and one's Spanish?
yeah, Tom Holland's a good guy because he's got an American accent, and Antonio Banderas is the bad guy because he's got a very strong Spanish accent in this one. Although
yeah,
I couldn't take it too seriously because he just sounded like Puss in Boots. So it's like the bad guy is Puss in Boots.
I like I also just, I don't know, I really didn't like Mark Wahlberg's character. And I did spend a lot of the film being like, what is this guy's motivation? He's just like so shady. He was just like, who is this guy? Where's all his money come from? Like, I don't know. Like, obviously, they'll probably explore that as like a plot point when they do the inevitable sequel. But yeah, I don't know. Like you said, it archaeologically speaking, the whole film is I appreciated that they acknowledged that they were thieves and that Nathan Drake gets into it because he's like a pickpocket. He's a thief. He's not really interested in the morals behind it, et cetera, et cetera.
Or the history.
Yeah, exactly. He's not, and it has a family connection to him because his brother tried to steal the map. Like, I don't know. But yeah, archaeologically, I don't know. Watching them do the scene where I was like, how is it physically possible for these helicopters to lift these boats? Like, but to be fair, my expertise is not in aerodynamics. So I don't really know anything about helicopter cranes, but I was just like watching that and I was like, oh my God, there's no way that those boats would stay intact. There is no way. Like the minute you tried to lift them up, the whole thing would just like rot and fall apart.
And they've got like, shitloads of gold in them as well, which is, notoriously
heavy.
very, very dense and heavy. And these are like 300-year-old rotting ships in a tropical climate, harnessed at the front and the back. It would just end up being like a big kind of mildewy mass. That's what would happen the second they tried to lift them.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Yeah, speaking of Nathan Drake's research, we're supposed to believe that these two thieves know so much more about the real history than the average person does, and that they somehow have been able to do all this research and find all these clues to find this treasure because they're so good at researching. We have a little montage early on when he's doing a bit of research on his computer. And did you catch one of the pages that he's doing his archaeological research on?
No, is it Wikipedia?
No, it's worse. It's Ancient Origins.
Oh, yes, I did see that. I did see that. And I was just like, what?
If you're not familiar with Ancient Origins, listeners, it's a web page that features archaeology. And I mean, sometimes it features write-ups about archaeology that are fine, but it also includes a section on like, I can't remember what it's called, like mysteries and paranormal. So it does ancient aliens, it does Atlantis, it does every kind of woo archaeology you've got. And on my assignments for my students, I have a short list of banned sources, and Ancient Origins is on it. You're not allowed to cite Ancient Origins in my classes.
Right.
If you got to cite a bad page, cite Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is going to be accurate. Ancient Origins is a disaster of a page to cite. And Ancient Origins has an article about this movie and about their involvement in it. And apparently the director reached out to them, and that's partly why they're included in this.
Suddenly it all makes so much more sense.
Yeah. And it's a very fleeting moment. It's on screen for maybe 3 seconds. And the page that he's reading about Magellan on Ancient Origins is, as far as I can tell, not a real page that exists, but Ancient Origins does have several different articles about Magellan. But like the idea that he knows so much about Magellan's journey, that he knows all these secret details that the establishment doesn't know, and he's learning it from Ancient Origins, is such nonsense. Ancient Origins is like one notch above AI written slop. And as far as I know, maybe they're getting into writing with AI because that would be, well within their, motivations. Just to show you how terrible it would be to cite Ancient Origins as your source, in the article that Ancient Origins has about this movie and their involvement in it, they talk a little bit about the values of these different treasures, and they mention Henry Avery's treasure, which, Rachel, you brought up already in this conversation. And they cite a source for the value of Henry Avery's treasure, and the source they cite is from a website called therap.com, which is just sort of like itself a conversation about this movie, where it does say that Henry Avery's treasure was worth about $120 million. And then they don't even cite sources for that. So, I mean, if you're using Ancient Origins as your source for your academic papers, they're getting their sources from other movie review websites that don't cite sources. So I just thought it was so hilarious that he's doing this deep dive into research, and he knows so much about Magellan that the public doesn't know, and Ancient Origins is where he's learning it from.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Well, that's like, when we talk about the size of the treasure, I mean, these things are, if they theoretically ever existed, are priceless. Do you guys know about I can't remember what the name is off the top of my head, but it's the one that's currently off the coast of Colombia that's being examined. I can't remember what the ship is called, but it's showed up in my news videos a few times because they've located the site. They're keeping it a secret, and they're currently like excavating it, but it's like it is a huge like treasure trove. It was a ship that sank, but there's like conflicts about who the money belongs to or who the treasure belongs to, because it was an American treasure hunting firm that initially located the site, but then I think it's the Colombian government is the one who's actually got the rights to the waters around it. It's like within their territory, but then the ship itself belonged to the Spanish government at the time that it sank. And then there's people in Colombia that are like, oh, well, that money was taken from us as slaves.
Yeah.
So like this should be repatriated to us to make up for our, like, you guys abusing us. So it's very complicated. I can't remember what it's called.
But yeah, it's really interesting that like with these kind of real world examples, you have essentially the argument boils down to, well, we stole it first, so it should belong to us. Finders keepers is the other side, and then you've got pretty much last on the list is, well, before they were stolen, they were ours. We made them. We didn't give them to you. You took them, and somehow, it seems fairly clear cut to most people, but once the kind of real politics gets involved, then people start arguing about it, and it feels so ridiculous that the Spanish government haven't learned anything from the past kind of 500 years of exploiting the South American cultures, that they're still going to try and argue that this plundered loot will belong to them. It just seems nuts.
Yeah, it's the San Jose. So yeah, they're currently it's the San Jose in Colombia, and they are currently doing like an underwater archaeology project with using robots to try and like map and do an inventory of the site. So it's like I think it's probably one of like when it all eventually comes out, if it ever gets excavated, I don't know if they'd even do that. Like it is like the treasure find of our lifetime in many ways.
Yeah.
It's
going to be so interesting to see what comes up, because I mean, my understanding is that a lot of the kind of gold and precious metals that were exported from South America to Spain were immediately on arrival kind of melted down into ingots for use. Like there's very little of the actual kind of cultural material from South America survives, because a lot of it was essentially melted down for reuse. So I don't know, would that melting process have happened in South America before transport, or will there actually be kind of cultural artifacts in their original form on this boat at the bottom of the sea?
I think it's the things that they've brought up so far that have confirmed it have been coins.
Okay.
So there is money inside of it.
Okay.
Because but then there's also obviously the value of the archaeological value of it as well, right? I'd be really interested to know how people judge the values of these various like treasures and et cetera, or how they like estimate how much they're worth. Because it's not like we're putting them up for auction at the moment. And the Henry Avery one, I thought, when I was looking it up, again, I did very surface level research, but I couldn't really find anybody saying how much. So everyone talks about how like they got away with 60,000 pounds, which is roughly 127 million. Was it pounds or dollars? $127 million made off in that time. They made off with about 600,000 in precious metals and jewels, which was probably inventoried on the ships they took it from. So that's how they know how much it was. But one thing that I did kind of see that gets glossed over a bit is that the treasure was divided between all the 5 pirate crews who took part in the raid, and then within the pirate crews it's divvied up between all of like everybody who took part. So no one individual person got $127 million. It all got divvied up amongst everybody. And we don't know really how much each individual person came away with. There's some mention that his ship might have stolen someone else's share or something, but it's interesting, like the fact that we think that he hid his treasure somewhere and it's somewhere waiting to be found is fine, but there's no mention that it's entirely possible that he didn't actually receive as much as we thought we did, and it was enough to set him up for a comfortable lifestyle, but then there wasn't much left over after.
That's a really cool thing. My understanding is that one of the kind of alluring things about being a pirate in that time was that they were very democratic institutions, and they kind of shared everything fairly and equally, um, unlike, say, the privateers or people working for the crown. That if you joined a pirate crew, then you would be looked after and you would see a fair return on the
Hmm.
danger and time that you invested in them.
Hmm. I don't really have much else to add. I don't know if there was anything else you guys wanted to to talk about. We've covered all my notes.
I think we've covered everything in my notes. Ross, any
Yeah.
outstanding notes?
Well, I feel like the henchman, one of the henchmen we haven't talked about, um, was called the Scotsman in the IMDb acting notes, and he was played as a very, I mean, his accent was okay, uh, um, but he was played with a very heavy Glaswegian accent, which was supposed to make him, I think, scarier, which is fair enough. But they didn't create him as a character with much kind of autonomy or intelligence, and he was supposed to be unintelligible. I mean, I understood him fine. It wasn't he wasn't like that broad, and I think most people that can understand Groundskeeper Willie on The Simpsons would have been able to understand this character. But yeah,
Mm.
that annoyed me. Not that
But
I have a chip
Nathan
on my
Drake couldn't
shoulder.
understand him in the scene where he's introduced. He sort of
Yeah.
threatens him in a Scottish accent, and he says, "What?" But yeah, it wasn't that hard to understand. I don't know.
Mm.
I didn't
Yeah.
have a difficulty understanding it, but I live in Scotland, so yeah, I've been dealing with that for a while. So I feel like I'm above average for the average person to like understand a Scottish accent.
Yeah.
So, in the end, what do we think about this movie? I mean, it's not as bad as a lot of the movies we watch because it's $100 million movie, so it can't be that bad, right? But the story is a little bit bland, apart from the sort of over the top action sequences, which are they really defy belief. Kind of took me out of the movie when they're flying around pirate ships in helicopters.
Yeah. I would agree. So bland, but holds your attention. Certainly not terrible for a video game movie. Um,
Mm.
and we've seen a lot worse.
Yeah, I think um I wouldn't probably watch it again. It was 2 hours.
Mm.
It's was entertaining enough. I appreciated that they had like several female characters and it wasn't just one female character who blew up broadly as just serving as a love interest. So that was nice. I did appreciate that about it, but yeah, I don't know. I think Tom Holland's got to work on his charm before he can really sell the film for me.
You wouldn't watch the movie again, but would you watch the sequel?
If I was having to do it for a podcast or if somebody was asking me to do it for something like this, I would, but I probably wouldn't watch it of my own volition.
Did you guys catch the mid-credit scene
With
setting
his
up the
brother.
sequel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, his brother is in prison at the end, but there's a mid-credit scene where he is meeting I think he had an eye patch, some new
Yeah.
guy, and they're trying to get a Nazi map, I think is what they were talking about.
Are you going to, my guess is that they're going after the Nazi train in Poland. That'll be my 2 cents that I think that they'll be going after.
That does make sense, although I would like to see a movie featuring some Nazi archaeology because
We don't have
Nazi
any of those.
archaeology is...
I mean, that's Indiana Jones.
Well, it is Indiana Jones, but I want something more true to the actual Nazi archaeology they were doing, right? I mean, I guess Indiana Jones is not that far off, but...
Well, I did back when the fifth film was coming out, I did a series on my YouTube channel where I did like research into the plots point behind Indiana Jones, the films, and is it real archaeology or not, etc. And did this whole thing into I can even though I have a German passport and my mom's German, I can't say it properly. The Annenerbe, Annenerbe, it's like the Nazi arm of the Nazis that was all anthropologists and historians and stuff like that. They're going around the world trying to find evidence of the Aryan culture and how it was so dominant over everybody else, etc. So actually, that makes them really great villains for an archaeology film, and is why they're and is the whole motivation behind what they're doing in Indiana Jones films, which I think what makes it hold up, because Nazis are an easy enemy to have. There's no morally gray bit about that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, they're a perfect
it's an important lesson.
film villain.
There is a movie that's been on our list for a while that I haven't seen yet, from the 1940s. I believe it's like a British propaganda movie called Pimpernel Smith, which is about a British archaeologist who leads a team into some Nazi-occupied part of the continent under the guise of doing archaeology, where they're supposed to be searching for like evidence of the Aryan race, so that they can get the permits to do this. But what they're really doing is rescuing prisoners from the Nazis. And that one's been on our list for a while, and I'm interested to do that one. I'd like to see what it's all about.
That would be really cool. I mean, somebody really needs to make a film about, they've done the Monuments Men one, which I watched ages ago, which was okay. But like about, the archaeologists who actually were involved in all the wartime stuff, like in Greece, I think one particularly was a big one. Or something that always gets kind of like glossed over when you talk about Lawrence of Arabia is that he was like an amateur archaeologist. And the archaeologists who were sent abroad as spies doing archaeological work, but like spying on these all other regimes under the guise of doing archaeology. I think that would be a really great film to look into and research. And
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Rachel. We already said at the beginning, if anybody is interested in more of your work, you have the archaeology YouTube channel called Inside Archaeology. Do you have any social media or anything else you'd like to share?
I have the YouTube channel. That's where I'm most active. I also have a accompanying Instagram, which is usually just serves to promote my YouTube channel. I occasionally do other stuff that is more just like Instagram friendly on there, but I currently have a young child, so I'm quite busy. I don't get to spend as much time on that stuff as I would like. But yeah, if people want to know the kind of the goal of my channel, the main thing that I do now is I used to do a lot of like archaeological careers advice, but now I do a lot more broadly like archaeological discoveries and news. So if you're somebody that likes to learn about all the discoveries that are happening, or you falsely think that archaeologists aren't finding anything anymore, have a look at my videos, because I think you'll quickly find that we are finding stuff all the time.
I'll put some links to that in our show notes. So thanks again for joining us. This was a really fun conversation.
Yeah, it was great chatting to you guys. Thanks for having me.
Do you have questions, comments, or movie requests? We want to hear from you. Find us on Blue Sky and Facebook at SOTSA Podcast. Send us an email to screensofthestoneage@gmail.com, or visit our website at screensofthestoneage.com.